Hello, hi, it's Kyle. Welcome to Artist Confessional. Today on this episode, we're going to be making a copper plate, multiple color jig. Let me try that again. Today, we're going to be making a multiple plate copper etching jig. No, we're going to be making a jig for multi-plate copper etching. That's what we're doing today on Artist Confessional. Join me in the studio. We're going to get right at it. I first saw multi-plate copper etching back at an SGC. I can't really actually remember when. It was pre-pandemic. I wanted to put it out there like 2017. I think it was in San Francisco because it was the Crown Point Press ladies. And they were doing this beautiful, large, multi-color copper plate etching. The whole thing that they were doing that I found really neat was that they were using two L-shaped jigs. One of the L-shaped jigs is taped to the press bed, and then the other one you place in between the jig, and then you place your copper plate. And that's kind of where you'd always land the copper plate in the same spot in the press bed every time. And you'd remove that jig prior to putting down your paper and printing the edition. The rules that they seem to follow is like the very first plate that they send through is a calendaring plate. It's just a blank copper sheet, and this helps to just kind of shape the paper and kind of make sure that the plates are all going to land in the same spot and that the embossments are going to end up stacking exactly on top of one another and not kind of getting offset from each other. After the calendaring, so they send it through, they bring it back, they start printing the first, then the second, and then the third and fourth color. It seems like you do one print at a time. They use a really long piece of paper, about like 6 inches extra than what they think their final paper size is going to be. That 6 inches sits underneath the press roller, and so it locks that paper in place and it doesn't leave until the edition is printed. The first things that I have to get together is I need a jigsaw, an extension cord obviously to power the jigsaw. We're going to use a L square, a big old fat like framing square that you can buy from Home Hardware. And I have some old copper. I found an old jig, like one of the ones I'm actually talking about. So we're already halfway there. This one seems to have actually served that function that I was talking about earlier, which is, I think, two-sided tape on one side, and it gets like, you can't see that, can you? No. Two-sided tape on one side and it gets stuck to the press bed. You're drunk, I see. I think what we're missing is the other square, which would be like another rectangle shape that would also have another little notch cut out for it. And I think I want that to be at least 3 inches wide so that no matter kind of what edition I'm going to be putting down, I know that at least if this bar is 3 inches away from where the plate's going to land on my paper, that's at least a 3-inch border. And like, I don't need more than 3 inches of space around any sort of plate work that I'm doing. Here is the L-shape piece of copper that I've already cut, which I was lucky to find. We're going to tape that down to the press bed. This piece, we need to notch out another similar L shape across here so that we can then put our actual copper plate. We'll notch into there. We'll bend one of these corners so that we can pick up this plate, and then we know that we're landing our plate where it needs to be every single time. Now, with this piece of copper, it has a factory edge, which is this one. I know that that's going to be perfectly straight or near as straight as it could ever be, better than I could ever get. So we're going to make sure that that stays butt down this way. And then it seems like I've already cut this edge, as evident by the backing on the tape on the backing. And we need to kind of notch out a little tiny bitty. Now, which side goes down doesn't really matter. It's more or less which one feels like it fits better. This one seems to be cupped, so like it wants to slide out. So why don't we make it this way? Now, if that's the case, we need to have that's kind of the notch that we need to make to have it fit here. I wonder if it's exactly 2 inches. If we line up the one, well, it's like 2 1/8. So why don't we knock in 2 inches and we'll go from there. at least 1/2 inch. We want to keep this, but we want to cut out that. And we want to cut to like this side of the line. So we want to make sure that we're leaving the line while we cut, or cutting as close to it as possible.
So close.
Our piece is chopped out, so this will sit into this corner. Next, we need to make sure that we clean up the edges of this so that nobody hurts themselves on it. This piece doesn't need to get beveled unless we mistakenly send it through the press, but we shouldn't mistakenly send this thing through the press because we're still going to turn up one of the corners so that when it's laying flat, we'll be able to lift it up and pull it away. This piece has already been beveled and it's got a pretty a pretty gentle bevel to it. And so I'm not worried with this guy and any other plate going through the press at the same time. So let's clean up this guy with a file. That's the correct direction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we want it to come up. Isn't that ridiculous? We want it to be more of a turny bit, right? Not so sticky uppy.
We are setting up to print the edition, which means we have to register the plate on the press bed. What we have here is kind of 3 different items. We have our plate, we have the one jig that we made earlier, and then we have the second one that we found. We have measured out the center of the press bed along its horizontal and then the center along its vertical so that we can have an idea of where the plate should be. I decided when we were at ZMA's to register my plate in a bit of a weird location so that I could use this side of the paper for other prints. I didn't want to waste a bunch of paper, but we need it to be long enough that I can hook one side of the paper into the roller so that when we shift from one plate to the other, it's locked in there and it's not going to move. So basically that's why there's so much extra paper around the actual print. What we have to do now is add the double-sided tape to the back of this particular jig. We have this one taped down with green tape so it doesn't move and we can work off of it. Then I can remove that and we can start printing. first layer done, the pink layer. So we're just gonna rest that there. Take the plate out. Put our registration jig in here. Grab the next color. Remember to put it the right direction. It's shocking how often I almost forget. We're just gonna slide it in to the corner. Big thing is making sure that it's lined up well along that long edge. Let me take this out. Just going to lay it back down and put down my newsprint. Put down my blankets. And then spin.
The next opportunity to really kind of study multiple plate copper etching was with Liz at ZMA's. She showed us how to transfer images between like the first plate and into the second plate and so on and so forth. And so the quick explanation of that is when you do your first print, it's usually your key plate, and then you print that onto the paper, transferring it there, and then you just put your next sheet of blank copper in. And then when you put the paper back down, the ink transfers back onto the copper. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can follow the video that's in the description below. And that concludes this art adventure. I will catch you on our next one. Goodbye for now.
Are the secrets of studio practice.